Are you a business looking for a fresh new way to reach potential customers? Well, you need to get airtime on IT TV, a 24/7 streaming and on-demand TV service online and on Roku. With Roku having a potential reach of 62 million people, it's a perfect opportunity to reach potential customers through affordable commercial and infomercial spots. Visit us online today at itnetwork.tv.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. And thank you for joining me on another episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. I am your host, Sharifah Hardie, and we have a very exciting show for you today. We're going to laugh, we're going to learn, we're going to share some important moments with you. But this show is about entrepreneurs, it's about business owners. And I'm pretty sure there's someone in your network, in your neighborhood, in your house. I don't know, maybe they're at your job, but they are starting out a new business and they can learn from the experts on our show. So we have two new guests today, and we have Sir Sanju, who you see every other week on the Roundtable Talk Show. But if your friends don't have this information, if your network doesn't have this information, don't blame me. It's up to you to share the show with your friends. And as I always say, friends don't let friends miss out on the Roundtable Talk Show. So while you're introducing your friends to the show, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our very first guest, Dr. Pamela Gurley. Dr. Gurley, how are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm fine. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
So my name is Dr. Pamela Gurley. I'm a woman of many talents, but most of all, I am a writer. I write everything from, business plans, copyright content for brands, books. I am the author of a multilingual children's book series called Brown Girl and Brown Boy. I just released my my first anthology, but the second book to my Black Girl Activist brand today, just not too long ago, called Black Girl Activist, A Shift in Social Change. The first book was called Black Girl Activist, Changing the Narrative of Black Women. So most of all, I'm a writer, and that's one of my passions. My passion is definitely writing. And as a business owner, I think it's an art form that is unsurpassed, because it's something that a lot of people don't do very well. So I'm very proud to be a business owner that owns a writing company. And then on the flip side, be a personal brand that writes as well.
Oh, wow. And you're a doctor?
Yes, I have a doctorate in management, and I specialize in organizational development and change. So while most people say that they do business consulting, I'm more of a business strategist, because everything really ties back to money. I worked for the government for 14 years as a budget officer or a budget analyst, and then turned budget officer, which I was that for until I resigned last year to 100% bet on myself and become a full-time entrepreneur. So that's how I write business plans. And then I'm also a grad school MBA business professor on top of those things. So like I said, I'm a woman of many talents that has a range of a lot of things that I do that really helps new and, future and people who, entrepreneurs who really want to do something different, but do it the right way.
I love it. And you are a prime example. I talk about when I first launched this show, I asked the question, who are you and what do you do? But after about 100 episodes, I learned that just because someone does something, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're passionate about. They may be a chiropractor, but they really want to talk about ballet. And so I'm like, okay, what are you passionate about? Yes, exactly.
I'm passionate about writing. That's just what I do.
I'm going to come back to you. I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Mr. Michael Stein, who's an entrepreneur, actor, writer, director, producer, and stand-up comedian. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Are you funny?
You know what? I'm just a neurotic Jew that likes to share stories about themselves. So I really don't, it's like people ask, tell me a joke. I said, I don't tell jokes. I just talk about dysfunctionality, and I do it really well.
Well, I love it. Tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, and what you're passionate about.
Michael Stein. I I'm here because I do a podcast called Long Shot Leaders, and my story, I'll do a Reader's Digest version. I'm what you consider a long shot. The reason why I do that podcast is because a long time ago I said, if I was going to do a podcast, it'd be about people that overcome large obstacles to find success. I come from a long line of long shots. My grandmother escaped the Russian concentration camps on the way to America. My dad was a New York homeless street kid. Became a multimillionaire, only become homeless again. And I was born premature, ADHD, dyslexia, all kinds of health issues. And really never had any success as a kid, but until I made people laugh. And then I saw the movie Rocky when I was 10 years old and had became a physical fitness. I saw a guy like me. I said, this guy's not successful. He's not smart. He's funny, but the only difference is he was physically fit. So I made physical fitness my thing. And then by the time I was 16, I was a physical fitness trainer and realized that if you applied, effort towards time, you could have some success. So I didn't go to college. I graduated. The day after I graduated, I said, I'm going to start a business and I want to be an entrepreneur, an actor, and a comedian. And my tutor said, nope, you're not going to be able to do that. Not everybody's meant to do what they want to do. And I said, screw you, lady. And then I started my business and I failed miserably the day, like a couple weeks afterwards. It just didn't succeed. But then 6 months later, I decided to do stand-up comedy when I was 19. And I brought a lot of people there. And I said, I could bring other people to nightclubs. This is in Los Angeles, where I'm from. And within 6 months after that, I became the #1 nightclub promoter in Los Angeles in my age bracket. And that started my acting career. My first acting role was playing Dirt Diggler in the Dirt Diggler story and the short film version of Boogie Nights, which I appear in as well. And became an actor and a filmmaker from there, and had a long tour de France of making successful films, but never over to a movie deal. So then by the time it came time to, really where the rubber hits the road, with Hollywood, I said, screw Hollywood, because I was gone through red tape of them wanting to make one of my screenplays and it didn't come close to it. So I said, I'm going to make my own movie. Only problem is that I was broke and in debt. So then I decided, well, I'm just going to become an entrepreneur again. And I sold tarps on the internet. There was like this back in 2002. And within 6 months, I made $500,000 for my film with a film called Love Hollywood Style with Faye Dunaway, Andy Dick, and Coolio, crazy cast. A film that Hollywood never let me make, and almost bottomed out that business. But ever since, I've decided I'm going to choose that opportunity over my passions of this long journey of Hollywood. So I made my main focus on my business, which since then has made over $100 million. And I still do stand-up comedy, and I still do stuff here. But my main focus is being an entrepreneur, which pays the bills. And that's why I'm here. That's why I do a show called Long Shot Leaders. Because I said, if I'm ever going to do a podcast, it would be about somebody that's gone through hills and valleys of success and failure.
Well, I love it. We're going to have to get a couple of people on your podcast because I know some people who would be considered a long shot. We are going to discuss that, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Sir Sanju. And you see Sir Sanju here at least once a month. Sir Sanju is a quintessential entrepreneur and an expert in marketing. He is instructed in the philosophy of success. Good morning, Sanju. How are you?
Amazing. How are you?
I'm excited to have you back. Was it 2 weeks ago or a month ago where you were here?
It's usually once a month. I kind of check in and see what's going on.
Okay. What do you think about today's show?
You know what I love about this is that no matter how random this process is of who's going to be on the show, we all sort of connect in some weird way. So, in this case, we're all technically storytellers, right? So it's kind of cool because, as a marketing agency, my job is to tell a brand story. It's to, get that content out there and talk to the masses, really, for our clients and ensure that they're being represented and their stories being told in a way that's, very close and related to what they actually do. So, I've always kind of had that thing in me, on the writing side. So it's kind of nice. It'd be kind of cool to talk to Dr. Pam a bit about the process of becoming a writer and how to actually not go crazy being a writer, because it's obviously not something that if you're not really into it, it's going to be hard to stay in. But I own a digital marketing agency, GNL Media. We do it all, everything from creating brands to taking products to market to large events and kind of everything in between, social media, lead generation, the whole standard thing. But what's really different about us is the way that we do it, right? We like to mesh things from different industries. We like to take things and just do them in a way that no one's really thought of it. or they're not necessarily thinking of it that way yet. So it kind of gives us a bit of an edge. It gives us, the ability to work with clients that are a little more flexible in their thought process, that are a little more tied to future growth and future revenues, and kind of going down the path with us down to kind of get there. We do have presence across North America, Asia, Africa, Europe. We're kind of all over the place. But again, our goal at the end of the day, and it's funny because we have an annual kind of deep dive in 2 weeks, and kind of the theme always seems to be is how do we tell better stories? So, like I said, it's very cool. I love the fact that, no matter which random date that, I'm on, there's always something or someone in there that, we all kind of tie together and unify in some sort of way.
I love it. I'm gonna have to get that testimony from you, or maybe I'll just crop that little video piece about the randomness, because people always assume that I'm like, okay, well, these guests go together, or these. I'm like, no, it's completely organic. It's completely organic, and I love it. It's the only way to keep me entertained. But I would love for Dr. Pamela, and then we'll go back over to Michael. But I would love for Dr. Pamela to answer the question that Sanju asked about how do you write? How do you go through that creative process without going crazy?
I feel like I'm a gifted writer. So I've been writing for as long as I remember. I started out writing poetry. I've always been an avid reader. And so the one thing that I rarely do is watch television unless I'm having a day where I'm going to binge. I like playing, word games that help mental stimulation. And so that keeps me kind of going. I'm guessing that's the only thing that I can say, because I very seldom, and I can't remember the last time I've actually gotten writer's block, because what happens is, even though I might not be focused on one book at a time, I'm focused on a book. So even though there's books that I've started, there's been other creative things that got me going, that I've literally been able to knock out a book in like 30 days or 2 weeks or something like that. So it's really hard for me to say where I get stuck. I think mine just goes to the next project, because as soon as I have a creative awakening, I will leave what I'm doing to start working on that. So, I'm probably not a good thing to do, but at the same time, it's been effective for me to even publish 16 times this year.
You published 16 books this year?
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. You like 16, the number after 15.
Yes. Yeah, only because, so what happens is, every publication that you produce is different, with a different ISBN. So my children's books are published in English, French, and Spanish.
Okay.
And so those are different publications. Yes. And so I did publish technically 4, because there's a boy book and a girl book, and each one of those are published in English, French, and Spanish. I published another book in March, my Black Girl Activist, and then I published another one today. So yeah, 16 total. Takes a while to get books translated, though.
Okay. No, I'm just saying, I'm not taking away from anything, but that makes more sense to me. I'm like, that's more than a book a month. Oh my God. So I wanted to ask you, though, is one thing that you mentioned is that you don't watch television. I don't watch a lot of television, and that's because I'm a critic. I pick it apart, and I'm like, well, that scene should have been better. They should have done that different. Why did they do that? That doesn't even make sense. To where everyone who's watching television with me is like, you can't just enjoy the show. And I'm like, no, it has to be technically correct. But there's some people don't watch television because they think the world is out to get them. Why don't you watch television?
Because I'm a writer. And so even though, if I look at publications for books, it's 16 times, but in 1 year, I've written well over 1,000 blogs, articles, essays. I'm a full-time technical writer. So naturally, I'm not able to knock out a book a month, but there are several book projects that I have in the making, where I have written 12 chapters in one, or 10 chapters in another, or 5 chapters in another book that I'm releasing next year. So there's never a time when I'm not really writing. And then even when I'm watching television, I'm distracted a little bit, because I'm responding to emails, or I'm sending emails, I'm creating content, I'm writing content. And a lot of times it takes a while. But when I do sit down to watch television, I will watch some TV and I'll binge it out. But for the most part, I'm just not that invested in watching television.
Yes, so many other things to do, like knock out those 16 books. Michael, do you have 16 books this year?
No, I write screenplays like it's giving birth to a child. It takes me 9 months. I got the ADHD, so it takes me a while. So I'll stick to like a John Truby 22-step story structure, or Save the Cat, which is like a kind of screenplay writing format. And I'll write the bones of the story first to make sure that my hyper, activeness doesn't get ahead of itself, because, rookie mistake is writing your dialogue first. So I'll spend time fleshing out the structure of the story, the human wants, the needs, the moral inadequacies they have, what they need to overcome, if they're going to end from a higher plane or a lower plane, things like that. And I'll get involved in the skeleton of that. And then after that's all done, and I've been disciplined with that process, I'll get into dialogue. And then you have to inevitably go back and make some changes there. So writing's rewriting, but it takes me a lot longer. I'd say about 9 months. I've written 8 screenplays, and each one's taken about 9 months.
Yes. Do you watch television?
I watch a lot of film. I'm a news nut, and I'm a lot of movies, so I can't watch as many movies as I used to, but I try to at least watch at least 2 movies a week. I used to watch when I was a filmmaker, and that's all I did. I would watch minimum 1 movie a day. But I don't watch much television, although what's really interesting is that now Netflix and Hulu and all these great shows are coming about, and it's screwing with me a little bit, because I want to dedicate that time to watching a movie, but some of these shows are pretty darn good. So I have been starting to watch a lot of those, those Netflix shows that are starting to come out.
What's your favorite Netflix show?
My dad got 2 daughters, so they started watching that Stranger Things, and I was like, man, this is pretty good. I mean, but there's been a lot of good ones. There was a show I would never watch, that like my wife started watching, and I was like, oh, I'll watch it. And I got into it. It was called Outlander, which is just are you familiar with Outlander? Anybody over there?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of shows I'll get involved in, and it's got good writing and direction and shot composition, and then I'll get into it, So Stranger Things is like one of the best things out there, and I guess that's in the forefront. But we just watched Squid Games a couple weeks ago. There's a bunch of good stuff coming out. It's hard not to, you're giving up film time, but some of these shows are just so good.
No, I haven't watched Stranger Things or Outlander. I might have to check them out. But I was just interested, because sometimes a show that you watch will surprise you. And the one that I watched and I felt a little guilty because I really liked it, I really enjoyed it, was You.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh my God, you shouldn't be watching this. This is horrible. But it's just so funny to me and humorous the way he just enjoyed killing all these people. So I was like,
I just watched the 2nd season. Unbelievable how they created, like, it's almost like he was like a likable character too there for a little bit while. How do you do that? This guy's killing people. It's crazy. It's just satanic. But yeah, I get it. I don't think it was that Outlander. Yeah, the Outlander. That was it's a book series too. So you kind of get involved in these book series that, like, I'm late to the game. I just finished Game of Thrones. Has anybody you guys ever seen that?
I haven't started it. I've been meaning to, but
yeah, I'm Breaking Bad. All these things are like, it's taken away from film time, guys. But these shows are getting really good. They're starting to pay a lot of attention to them.
Yeah. Have you watched Game of Thrones, Dr. Pam? Dr. Pam, are you with us? We can see you. I don't know.
Dr. Pam is writing right now. That's what Dr. Pam does.
Number 17.
For this year. We still have 2 weeks left for Dr. Pam.
I want to see her hands, because I know there's like she's writing as we speak. There's no way about that prolific, program.
Hi, Dr. Pam. Can you hear me?
It's so weird. It's coming in kind of weird.
Okay, well, we can hear you loud and clear. So, Game of Thrones. Let's talk about that.
I'm over here having technical difficulties, I think, because everything seems like it's dragging a bit. I don't know. Am I?
No.
Okay.
Game of Thrones. We're gonna have to see what we're gonna do. Sanju, we're gonna go over to Sanju. That's when we're gonna throw it over to Sanju for a question. How do you deal with technical difficulties and technical things that happen up in your line of business? I'm sure there's always a fire or something that you're putting out.
Well,
Segue.
the old school way is turn it on and off. I mean, blue screen 101, right?
Yes.
But there's different methodologies in terms of troubleshooting your problems. No, in all seriousness, I mean, it's actually kind of amazing how few technical issues happen nowadays, right? You can almost pinpoint hers to probably being a Wi-Fi issue at this point.
Right.
Right? So it's become very simple. It's usually one of three things at this point as a starting, right? But back in the day when you used to get, the old PCs, those were good times, right? Trying to figure out what exactly is happening and then trying to troubleshoot that.
Okay, so I want to go back to stories, though. I just wanted to see your take on why we're having technical issues. But stories, we talked about stories and writing scripts and watching television and that kind of thing. But for you in marketing, it's about creating stories. How do you take a product that is, say, somebody sells shoes or something simple, they sell chairs, but you take that product and you turn it into a story?
I think the key of stories behind marketing and specifically is not looking at it as the product owner, but looking at it as a product user. And I think that's where a lot of companies or a lot of people tend to kind of fail or fall off, is putting out content or putting out stories from a point of view that others can't necessarily relate to. Right. So, you may think that your shoe is great to wear in the shower, for example. But, taking that same premise of it being waterproof and saying, it's great to go on long hikes through waterfall areas, you can kind of almost put yourself into that story, right? And you have a lot more to talk about. So, and then the other part is, making sure you're not getting into your own head, right? So staying away from things that are way too technical and painting a picture where, again, you're looking to have that person place themselves into that scenario or into that lifestyle moment and see how it relates. And that's where you'll see most of the success come from these types of stories and from these types of product placements.
Mm-hmm. But I think for you, Michael, you're not focused on a product or a service. Your focus is on you. You are if I'm hearing you correctly, you are the product. You are the service. You are what you go out and promote as a stand-up comedian, as an entrepreneur. How do you make? And from what I heard, we're at $100 million. Was that the number?
What Sanju said is actually where I live. That's great advice, by the way. My filmmaking career and everything is the secondary now. My entrepreneur endeavor is we sell a tarp outdoor product. So we're actually launching a lifestyle brand next year. That's not just a Me Too brand, a Me Too product. It's a branded product that is kind of almost like a Yeti, kind of product. So you got to you nailed it. You got to show people people are buying for their tribe or their brand or how they want to picture themselves, of like, oh, I want to be free. I want to be climbing in the mountains with that product or that backpack or that, Yeti product or whatever. So you got to think about what appeals to them. Of course, their pain points, that's the 101, but the lifestyle of painting that 30-second spot of like everything that they say, that's what I identify with. And that's the adventure I want to go on, or that's where I see myself. And that's what I want to be. That's Sanju's,
It's selling without selling, right? And that's sort of the new way of doing things, right? It's not a, hey, buy my shoe. It's, hey, look how it fits into your life, right? And kind of
right, yeah,
showing that off, right?
Yeah.
Now, you, Dr. Pam, you write stories, but how do you make your book stand out? How do you make it differentiate in the marketplace where it's not just any book? It's, a book that a person has to have. This is interesting. This is going to be fun today, I see. It's Thursday. I don't know.
Very stoic.
At least it's a nice pose, right?
Yeah. Look great.
I have no idea what's going on with my computer.
No, it's wonderful. Are you with us? Are you back?
Yes, I'm here. I'm back.
We were complimenting you on your pose.
Oh, I heard that when I came back. So, I don't know what is going on. I just took my Wi-Fi off. So now this should be better. I don't know what's going on here, though. It's like the internet's against me.
That's what Sanju said. We know Sanju's an expert. Sanju said it comes down to the Wi-Fi. That was his,
yes.
I heard the wisdom in his voice. Dr. Pam, we're talking a little bit about differentiating yourself in the market? How do you go from being a product, just any product, any service, and creating a story, just like from your books? There are stories in your book, but how do you make your story, your book, stand out in the marketplace?
So you know what? I'm so glad you mentioned that. So one of the things, I'm a media journalist also, so I write media. And one of the things I wrote, I forgot about this book. I published a book called The PR Prep Guide. And one thing I had put in there was a chapter called Selling Your Story versus Telling Your Story. There's such a difference I look at business the same way. You can have a brand, but what's the story behind the brand that's going to make it stand out? I think for me as a writer, I don't do any templates. I allow people to be themselves. And even when I write business plans, there's no cookie cutter model. And so I always look at, I need to spend intimate time with you, which are built-in consulting hours. But at the end of the day, I always tell these brands, I'm not your brand. So I can't write without really, truly being able to understand the story behind it. That's what's going to make your story different. That's what's going to make your products different. I also look at what my target market means to me. And I'm very open to feedback and, positive criticism. I'm even open to negative criticism. I always feel like failure is one of those things that will heighten you in business. So for me, when I look at what makes my story different, it's the fact that I am not set to write one thing. I'm a blessed and very skilled technical writer. And so I can write from, men shaving all the way to women's jewelry, to trucking, to IT, to a certain level, because IT is a very high level, depending on what that business is. So for me, that's what makes me stand out, is that there's not anything that I have not written on, and there's not anything that I'm not willing to challenge myself to write on, because it's only going to make me better. One thing with having a doctorate is that you learn to do research. Anyone who knows and understands and have gone through the process of a graduate school, there's a lot of writing involved. There's a lot of research involved. And that becomes a skill set that will make you stand out than most traditional writers who have specific things that they write on. I don't have any specific genre. I'm very open. And like I said, if I don't know, I will find out, do information on that. So I've even written on tequila and learned a lot about it. So it really strengthens, it strengthens me as a business professor, because I constantly know what's out there. But as a ghost blogger, I call it white labeling. As a ghost blogger, when I'm writing for all of these different companies, the people that I work with, they just come to me, and it doesn't matter what they ask me to write for. They just give me a topic and I write it. And I think that's a skill set that makes me different in this market.
Absolutely. I love it. So many more questions, but we do need to stop for a brief commercial break, and we will be right back.
I've had this problem.
Big problem.
I really needed
a good business consultant.
And I kept searching and searching.
There are so many choices.
It's really hard to find one that has all the things on my list. But I finally did it.
Yes. Thank you.
If you are looking for one as well, look no further.
Here's a really good one.
Just use mine.
Use mine.
I'm very satisfied.
Definitely recommend. Problem gone.
Thank you.
You need jordansrooter.com. Get free estimates, 24-hour service, special discounts for seniors and veterans. That's jordansrooter.com. Have a home repair or some remodeling you need done? No problem. We can handle all that too. Give us a call today at 800-300-0358. At Jordan's Rooter, we take pride in our work and always make sure to get the job done right the first time. That's jordansrooter.com. We want to be your Mr. Fix-It.
Yes, ask us for anything. I love it. I love it. I love it. And there is a story in it. If you are just now tuning in to the Roundtable Talk Show, you have missed out on the first 30 minutes of the show. And I highly recommend that you watch it from the beginning in the archives. Now, I want to go back over to you, Dr. Pam, because we were talking about stories and you have the ability to write on anything. I would love to hear more about the tequila one day offline. But we have two different organizations, two different companies, Sanju, Michael, who have companies or who have products. What are some of the first questions or that you would say to them if you were considering working with them or writing for them?
So the first thing I always ask, if I would say they bring me something to write about, I'm very specific about their story. What inspired them to create this product? Because that's always the first thing. People's inspiration, especially when it's a really solid product, comes from somewhere. I've had people say, it's a memory of their grandparents, it's a memory of their parents, because then that story has power. So when I'm writing on it, I have to write as if I'm them. So I think it's important to understand what was the inspiration behind it, and I look at who is your target market, what do you want people to gain from purchasing, and I also ask what makes you different. This way I can understand how to write to that specific audience, but also write with a passion that I feel, because I can see the passion in them, I can feel it when I read it, and that's how I'm going to write it. I will equate it to journalism. Whenever I'm doing a piece on someone, there's a difference between writing a Q&A article on someone versus an editorial, because editorials takes a little bit longer because you're taking everything about this person, sometimes without even asking questions, and you just have a bio and information about their product, and you have to write a very solid story on them. I've been able to do that because I start looking at the fine lines of who people are, what they have done, how did their past become a part of their product right now. So I use all of those things in order to write a story about a person or about that person's product.
Mm-hmm. Michael, Dr. Pam she's asking you some questions. What inspires you? What makes you different?
That's a really great question, because and that process is really good, and it's hard for the creator to really come up with their own story. Sometimes you're cognizant of like what is your impetus for a product and all that, and then because we're just in the process of launching our first branded product after 20 years of doing a Me Too business, and that's the art form what Dr. Pamela is talking about, because when sometimes you're like, well, I don't know. I got, reason why, what's the storyline behind, here's my story. How does that correlate? Why am I doing this product? Well, I'm doing this product because I like Swiss Army knives and I want to create a product that's like the Swiss Army knives of tarps. Or my mom took me, the first movie I ever saw which is this movie right here, Soylent Green, about the end of the world. Actually, why can't I point over there? There it is right there. There it is right there. There. So you say, I want to be able to be ready and have like a survival product, and we're just going through that process now to where we're asking other agencies, how would you tell our story? Because I'm so involved and I'm a writer also, but I mean, when it's so internal, you need somebody like Dr. Pamela to really say, well, here's what I've heard out of your story. And here's what I think we can kind of focus on to market that product, because I don't think I want to market like, Soylent Green as being impetus for my, survival product, but maybe, I don't know, maybe Dr. Pamela could cook up something that, doesn't seem so dysfunctional to the masses that can, that could be applicable.
Dr. Pam.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. That's one of the things I'm good at. I think a lot of people can envision a lot, but then they can't put it down on paper, or they put it down and it's just all over the place. My goal is to ask very specific questions that will get people's mind to thinking. And if they just tell a little bit of their story, then they start to feel the magic in that product creation.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. How about you, Sanju?
No, I mean, yeah, she's dead on. I mean, it's exactly that, right? It's getting, and it's interesting because we kind of follow the same process when we go through setting up and managing people's social media accounts, which is pretty much asking those questions that get them to think, right, and think differently about themselves and their business, so that we can kind of take that and kind of cascade it out to the masses, right? So I think it's very important to, and you know, as business owners ourselves, I'm sure between the three of us also, there's a lot of things that we've never really thought of, or it's just kind of like, you know, we've relied on it as, oh yeah, we know it's there in our head, it's just somewhere way back there, we don't really know where. But when someone brings it to the forefront, and that aha moment you have, with that realization, you know, going through a process, you know, with Pam to understand, or, you know, with our team on the social side to understand, it actually starts to kind of creep into your business, right? And you start to make these little mini pivots, or these mini changes within it, to start to align and remind yourself as to why exactly and how exactly you plan on doing this. So it's a great process. It's a fun process, especially if you like to consult and you like to talk to people. You know, it's taking that, and then, you know, from Michael's specialty of, you know, having more of the comedic standpoint, or the more humorous standpoint, is now how do you take this seriousness, add a little, you know, humor to make it relatable, but still kind of play within what's accepted generally, you know, within that client base or within that community.
That makes sense. Now, Michael, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna ask you a question, because I've been listening to you and I'm confused. And usually I'm confused because you got to be on a certain wavelength to understand certain people. But you've mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned a Me Too business and Swiss Army knives. And so I've heard of the Me Too movement, and I've heard of Swiss Army knives, but I've never heard of a Me Too business that focuses on hiking. And so please explain what this business is.
So my business for tarpsplus.com has been my business. When I called it my film business, when I wanted to make that movie Love Hollywood Style with Faye Dunaway, Andy Dick, and Coolio, I said, I'm going to have to start my own business. So I started this tarp business, but I just started selling tarps that you can get in the store, like poly tarps, canvas tarps, you know, all kinds of like regular tarps you'd find in a store. What we're doing now is we're created a tarp backpack related product that is very stylized and very branded. It's coming out next year, which is totally different. A Me Too business is like, I sell that product also, or so you could find out is a non-branded product that anybody could sell. And now that we're branding a very particular type of tarp related product that is going to have a lifestyle, you know, a vision attached to it, it's totally different than, let's say, you know, so it's two different modalities. So now I have to get involved with the kind of, you know, storytelling that Sanju and Pamela are talking about. And that's why I say Me Too, because not to be confused with the Me Too movement. So that's my history, you know, of you know, it's kind of like we're almost like a 21-year startup company, you know, that's launching its first branded product.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that clarification, because I was confused, because what I was seeing was a Swiss Army knife for when you get on the casting couch and somebody tries to do something and you like, not me. That's what I saw.
That wouldn't be the worst thing that's happened in a casting office for me. Does somebody want to slice me up with a Swiss Army knife? But no, a Swiss Army knife, meaning, you know, that's kind of like our branded product. It does a lot of different things. It's like the Swiss Army knife of backpacks and tarps. So, you know, and I joke around about Soylent Green because that's the story about the end of the world. And basically that was the first movie I ever saw when I was 6 years old. Your mom shouldn't take you to that movie when you're 6, you know, it's just not right. But, you know, that added to the, you know, the neuroses, but, you know, it's really tough because from a branding standpoint, if I were to come to Dr. Pamela and I'd say, yeah, you know, we're really trying to really model, our brand is going to be like Yeti, or it's going to be like, you know, that kind of outdoor, you know, adventure, you know, and then, but I'm the guy that owns the company, and I'm not the hunter fishing kind of guy, but I'm into that product. How do you sell that? And that's our dilemma that we're at the crossroads right now.
Okay, I'm gonna let Dr. Pam can answer this question, but this is what comes to me that I would want to know from you, Michael, is that you said you're into it, but you're not that type of guy. So how do you be into something and still simultaneously not be? I mean, I'm confused. You done confused me to this morning. So
you're not, welcome to the club. Everybody I talk to is always confused by talking to me. Where's my wife? So, anyways,
I got some questions for her.
She's this is part of the course for her. She's like, I'm just so no. I am into the outdoors. But not like the Yeti guys were like into, they were had that in their DNA. They were like fishing and hunters and all that, so, and I'm also got a little prepper in me, cause I'm an 80s kid. I was always worried about nuclear war. So this product that we're creating is like a survival product, it's like a tarp where, it can help you survive out in the wilderness. But if people looked at my background and say, well, Mike, are you the outdoor guy? I'm like, nah, not really. I mean, I like the outdoors, but not compared to like the story that they built around Yeti, which is like this, that was their dad was a hunter and they're like grew up with fishing and hunting. And how do I tell my story when I'm not that? Am I going to tell that story? That would be a lie. So I have to really kind of be honest and like, but this guy's also a comedian. He's not an outdoor guy, or I'm not like, Larry the Cable Guy. So that's why it's confusing me at this crossroads, because we're launching this in about 11 months from now. What kind of story do we tell? And that's authentic, but at the same time talks about, do I have to be 100% like all in as a hunter or that's where I get a little lost. And that's why Pamela earns her weight in gold and Sanju earns his weight in gold on branding.
Wow. No,
are you still confused?
Well, no, now it makes sense, because I think what's happening is we're working through this process, which Dr. Pam is going to help us with. But I completely understand what you're saying. I had someone who did a 60-second commercial during the Roundtable Talk show about, I think, 2 weeks ago. And the commercial finished, and I told her, I said, please don't hate me. I said, but I really have to say this. Your commercial made me tired, because it was people zip lining and doing outdoors. I'm like, I don't do any of that. Like, I'm tired of watching this commercial. So I Dr. Pam, your thoughts?
So you know what? I think for me, there's such a difference between loving something and then just saying to yourself, gosh, if that were me, this is what I would want. Or it only takes one experience to realize, man, if I had this or this, I would, if the experience would be different. Or you just envision what someone's experience will be like. And I'll give a good example. If a zombie apocalypse happened right now, would you survive? A lot of us have no idea, because a lot of us don't believe that it could happen. But let's just say it do. How do we prepare? We can mentally think, I know I would need this, or this, or I would want to be able to do this, or here's where I'd want to be. Here's how I would get around. Here's what I want to do. That's how you think about products that you might have some level of passion about, based off of something that you have seen, something that you perceive, something that you've watched on maybe television or on a commercial, because you envision it. And sometimes that's people's creation. And so you don't necessarily have to constantly live the experience to be able to create a brand around it.
That makes sense. And my son and I were laughing during the pandemic. Not a zombie apocalypse, but any other apocalypse. We have enough food, enough toilet tissue, and paper towels to last for a couple of years in this house. I tell you. So I definitely know what you mean. I can definitely relate. Sanju, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I can't remember the last time I bought paper towels, man. It's been so long.
So you have a stash as well?
You got stashes on stashes. I used to have a storage area in the office, and it was literally just stocked. It was crazy. Now you look back and you laugh, right?
Yes.
No, I think I agree with both of you guys. At the end of the day, the products or the services that come from people, or the passion behind it, isn't necessarily because of something that you yourself need, or you yourself have had experience with, right? I mean, a lot of times you'll see it through friends, family, general public, or you'll just kind of figure out a way in through a conversation where you're like, there's a better way to do this. There's an easier way to do this, right? Like we're invested into, a women's clothing line. Now, obviously, I don't want women's clothing, right? So, but we see the need, and we understand the fact that, the way that the stuff is being manufactured and the way that's being positioned, is the way of the future, right? So it's a nice, it's understanding the industry and the need for that type of industry versus, the puff shoulder or the whatever, the ribbed texture on it and why that makes a difference, for example, right? So I think a lot of things that, we tend to get involved in, as people, is more understanding the needs of others. I think stuff that comes from your personal needs, those tend to be those inventions. But in terms of products and services, I'd probably say that most of it comes from seeing other people in need or finding ways to make things more efficient, either selfishly because you want to spend more time with that person and they're so invested in spending time and making that process or making that that part of their life perfect, or comes from a need in terms of being able to see someone be more comfortable or see someone live a better quality of life.
That makes perfect sense. And I think also it doesn't have to be every area, because even thinking back to this apocalypse, like I would not starve, but if I got cut or, I had to sew up, how in the movies, I'm sure you know this, Michael, but somebody always has to get the little kid out and then they stitch up. Like, no, I would not be the stitch up. Don't put me in charge of stitching up the wounds because everybody dies.
You guys piqued my interest. You guys gave me an idea on the show. I got the idea, I think, I want to run it by Sanju and Pamela. So about a year ago, I went to a trip in West Texas. Right now, I live just outside of Austin. I moved from LA to Austin. And I went on this trip, and we're talking like 6 hours west, where it's near like the border of like Western Texas. And we're talking desert. And the neighbor that we went with, they have this big property. I mean, it looked like where Sarah Connor went, like at the end of like Terminator 1, where like she was like going down to like Mexico, like, like the mountains there. That's what, like, there's no vegetation. And we had to drive like 25 minutes on an off-road out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm thinking, if we got stuck out here, what would you carry your stuff in? What would you be able to like, survive, with, you need water. What if you run out of water? What if you need shade because the hot blazing sun is like 125 degrees? What would you do then? And I'm thinking maybe that's the impetus. Maybe that's the story of where we start to where the product was discovered there.
Yeah. It's almost paranoia to a certain extent, right?
Well, I specialize in that. So
what are your thoughts on what Michael had to say, Dr. Pam?
I think that's great, because I piqued the question based off of something that he probably didn't even think about or consider or remember an experience that tied him to wanting something, needing something. That mindset shift just that quickly, he went from wondering how he's going to put these in words of, hey, how did we get here, to I think I know how I got here. So I feel like I've done my job today.
I feel like I've done my job today too. You know what I mean? Bringing everybody together. I think it's a wonderful thing. Sanju, what did you think of that recollection that Michael had?
I think it's brilliant. It's very well put. And like I said, it's kind of funny because I guess the one part I left out was, ideas that come based on paranoia. Which are usually the kind of coolest and most fun ones anyways.
Explain that, Sanju.
Well, the thought of a product because you're in the middle of a desert looking around going, oh, what if my car broke down? Oh, what if I ran out of water? Oh, what if, right?
The world comes to an end.
Right? It forces a lot of, forces you to look at things more creatively, proactively. And as I said, it kind of feeds off a certain level of paranoia, right? Of what if, and then you factor in the fact that the man lives off movies and makes movies. That's a whole level of mess with your head.
Yeah, well, Sharifah, I tell you what. Look, Sharifah, I tell you what. I'm grateful that if I had to stitch someone or myself, I could absolutely do that. Combat medic skills. Prior service, Army medic.
No.
I'm halfway ready. I could, I've learned and established some really great, survival skills. One, growing up a military brat, and then being prior service military myself. So I at least have some safety skills where even when I travel, oddly, my friends and, my significant other knows if you ever have something happen, I carry medication. I carry even a little First aid kit.
No, see, you know what I would travel with? Dr. Pam, right? Because
That's what I was going to say.
First woman that I would say that about, because my philosophy, and I tell people I am completely sexist. I'm so sexist. I'm like, where's MacGyver? Where's the nearest man? Because that's who I would call to fix all these different things. I don't even like women firefighters, because if I'm on the 5th floor and you're like, jump, no. Where's MacGyver? Where's the man? But you know what? I'll call Dr. Pam. I'm willing to change my mind for you, Dr. Pam.
Yeah, see, I'm telling you, I'm a jack of all trades. Believe it or not, things that people don't know about me that I'm really savvy at. I mean, even home projects. I'm that girl that have like 2 drills, my own hammers, my own saw. I've ripped up carpet, laid down flooring. Look, it's crazy. I love to do a lot of different things. I wear a lot of hats.
And on top of that, as we've been doing this interview here, she just wrote another novel.
That's the 17th book this year.
Yeah, well, you know what? Actually, it was 17, but technically, if I don't consider the extra translations, I still published 7 books this year without even the translated books. It was still 7.
Dr. Pam, if you publish 1 book this year, that's still more than most people. Most people, I believe that there are cemeteries full of $1 million ideas, meaning most people take their ideas, their paranoia, their creations, everything to the grave and don't do absolutely with it. So I am completely impressed by what you're doing and what you have going on. Now, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. This has been a lot of fun. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching this show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today. And we're going to start with you, Dr. Pam.
All right. So, you know what? First of all, I would say that I hope that the takeaway for everybody is to live your best life and dream big and pursue those dreams, that there is really nothing impossible if you really, really feel passionate about it. Secondly, I want you to come out and support. I'm releasing 4 children's books next year, every quarter. The first one will be released February 12th or somewhere around that time frame. And I will be doing a kids red carpet book signing in 4 cities, Austin being the first one on March 5th, then Jackson, Mississippi, Chicago, Illinois, and then last, I'm going to kick it off in October on the October 5th in Orlando, Florida. It is an amazing event for children, so it's not just about education. I have STEM activities, there's face painting, there's a lot of things that's going on, and so I'm also looking for sponsors. I have the sponsorship deck that's ready to go. So, and I like it free for kids. It's all about literacy for children because it is so vital and important. And reading and literacy is actually what connects you to creativity. So come out and support. Also, download my book, Black Girl Activist, A Shift in Social Change. That's available now on Amazon. So, hey, I'm here. And I also have a coach writing service that I will be kicking off in 2022. So for those who want to write, may feel stuck, I'm there to coach you. It's a 90-day program. It'll be up on my websites very soon.
Okay, Dr. Pam, I just want to let you know 2 things. Number 1, I'm very disappointed that you're only doing 4 books next year. I think you need to step up your game a little bit. Right. Okay.
Children's books. I didn't say adult books. Those are my children. So I'm releasing 4 books every quarter next year for the next 2 years. So that's the thing. That's my children's book series because I'm really a strong proponent for childhood literacy, and especially for ESL and other languages, because when we talk about representation, we forget that it crosses language barriers. And there's a lot of parents at home that have children in schools that speak English, but when there's adults at home that don't, they can't really interact with their children. So I made sure that if children can have books because they are in school libraries, that they can check them out and read with their parents at home. So my books are offered in both Spanish and French as well as English.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to get some more books. Now, number 2, I was waiting to hear Los Angeles on that list. I'm like, how do you do a tour without Los Angeles? That's just unheard of.
So I was just in Los Angeles doing I was in Orange County doing a reading for Jack and Jill at an amphitheater down there in Orange County, Florida. Orange County, California. So I tell you what, if I could just carry all of that stuff, because I have to drive a lot of stuff. So for this time, it's easier to get around the East Coast. I am in 2023 plan on getting over there to LA, or I might do something a little bit smaller for LA. It's coming up, but I'm also on the Black Authors Matter book tour, and I will be in LA as a part of that in November. I just left LA not long ago, actually. I was there every month, feels like, from July to November.
And you didn't call me?
You know what? I'm gonna take that up with my PR. Look, I'm gonna take it up with my PR.
That's
say,
right.
Okay,
That's I take that a little personal. I would go a little bit more in depth, but we're running out of time. So, but just let her know or him know that I'm a little offended.
I will let her know.
Thank you. Michael left me too. Left me here in LA by myself. What do you have for the people, Michael?
I just want to say, Pamela, that's I commend you. Yeah, it's brutal writing even one book. The fact that you just write them so prolifically, so that's awesome. What's my message? Life is only as good as the emotions that are lived within that life. So learn how to manage your emotions into positive ones. If you want to find out more about me, if you have a long shot story, if you just overcome any kind of large obstacle to find success, contact us. Love to have you on the show at longshotleaders.com. Just go to longshotleaders.com and let us know your story, and love to have you on the podcast. And the reason why I left Los Angeles is because, as much as I love LA and I go back quite often, the environment for business out here to expand is great out here in Texas and the Austin area. Austin in particular, a lot of people from LA, a lot of my friends have moved out here. Austin's really cool. It's kind of like LA and San Francisco went to Texas, so it's a really cool area. And if come on out to do Texas and check out Austin.
Absolutely. So I have a long shot story. I've been laid off 8 times, been homeless, divorced twice. Does that count?
Oh my, yeah, it does. Looks like you're going to be on our show, Sharifah.
That's right.
Yes. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. And now look, you got the round table, you got positive message, there's a nice arc to that. That's a good story arc. That's what we want.
Okay, I'm going to longshotleaders.com and I'm going to submit my story, see if I get accepted.
Well, you got my email now. You can just go there and we'll get you hooked up.
Thank you, Michael. Sanju, what do you have for the people?
Well, I always like to end with a bit of a quote. So mine for this time is, for a committed person, there's no such thing as failure, just lessons learned along the way. I wanted to thank both of you guys today. It was great meeting you both, learning your stories. It was a lot of fun. Sharifah, your ad, by the way, I'm going to steal that from you, just so you know. Thank you. But I guess my message for the day or for now is, we're kind of winding down the year, which is, it's been an interesting year for a lot of us. We've been able to kind of be there and help a lot of our clients kind of ramp back up and get out of all the damage that COVID did for us. But, if you're looking for any guidance or any free advice for, kind of how to ramp up 2022 and take advantage of the opportunities that are out there from a marketing standpoint or a growth standpoint, we'd love to have a chat. So our website is also in my name, au4a.com. Or if you like things that are really long, then it's askusforanything.com. Or you can find us on Instagram at GNL Media. So, look forward to kind of meeting more people and talking to you guys and seeing if we can help you grow as we get back to normal.
This is the new normal. This is the new normal. I love it. I want to thank you all for being guests in today's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. And I especially want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch this show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives. I appreciate your support. I truly appreciate you watching the show. I appreciate you sharing the show. But the most important thing to me is that you support our guests, that you visit their websites. Their website link is in the Facebook post. Follow them on social media. Reach out to them. Pick up at least 7 8 of Dr. Pam's books. Go check out Michael's podcast. Go work over there with Sanju. But please support our guests. Our guests are here this morning to help you, to provide their advice, their strategies for you. So please support them. Follow them on social media. Reach out to them. And when you do, please let them know Sharifah Hardie says hi. Now, if you're interested in more ways that I can help your business, or maybe you want to be a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show, please visit my website at AskSharifah.com. Until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, everyone have a safe and a blessed day.